Mr. Hannaford, you're, the oldest villager here.
Yeah.
What was your job?
All sorts.
You were the...
rabbit trapper, quarryman.
And the grave digger.
Farman. Nobody couldn't touch me, sir. Farman. I don't care where me would go, sir, yeah. I don't really.
You were the grave digger as well, weren't you?
Yeah, grave digger.
How much did you get for a grave?
Oh, I've had so much as £7 for a chatter. And they didn't come very often, you know.
Why did outsiders cost more?
I don't know. They always say double. Vicar too, you know. You 70. He said, if you charge that so much, he ain't going to do the same.
How many people have you buried?
70 odd.
70 odd. Have you always known the village as small as it is now?
No, I don't think it is.
Why have the people gone away?
Oh, well, I don't know why. Dad, most of them, old people, you know. Good lot of young fellas like I was when I was bringing up the old Clearway. Most all of them.
Why did they go away?
I don't know. Didn't like Rattery, I suppose. Couldn't get a job there.
Are there many young people here now?
No, very many, not young chaps. A few children. What's about, I don't know, they go bus, 20 odd, is it? That's about all.
I'm gonna have a chat with him.
Oh, he's got it. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, how certain is your range?
Yeah.
Reg, many people would say that living in a village like Rattery is reward itself. Why should you want to give additional awards?
Well, I think wherever one lives, whether it's seaside, country, wherever you live, town, I think that life gets boring some way or the other, and I thought that this idea may perhaps bring a little happiness and perhaps a little bit of colour to people's lives, you know, more than we would normally have.
Hero of Rattery First Class sounds a most impressive award, but what's the medal going to look like? Now, I don't like to be rude, but some people are already suggesting that this is a prime award for eccentrics dreamt up by an eccentric.
Well, people, of course, are entitled to their own opinion, but frankly, I'm thinking very hard about this the whole time. I have a small number of people in the village. For instance, one of them is a member of a local poet group. Locally here, they do some shows at Plymouth, Torquay. they have a rather curious name, the ass's jawbone. Now, these people are not eccentrics, as some people would say they are. I don't think they are. They're great friends of mine. And I would say that those people who say we're eccentric are purely just annoyed.
Well, in that case, what kind of people would be qualifying for your award?
Well, I would think first and foremost there's a young girl in the village whose father, by virtue of his ill health, is no longer able to carry on with his farming as he ought to do, and so his daughter Eve, who's a young girl in her teens, now drives a man-sized tractor doing a man-sized job. I would think that she would qualify for perhaps a second class.
In that case, what kind of person is going to get a first class?
Well, this is a thing, as I say, our committee would have to go into. But I can't understand why people say I'm eccentric. Possibly it's because of my brown boots.
Fair daffodils, we weep to see you haste away so soon. As yet the early rising sun has not attained his noon. Stay, stay until the lasting day has run but to the evensong. And having prayed together, we will go with you along. Those lines were written by a man often described as England's greatest lyric poet, Robert Herrick. And we've come here to Dean Prior today. Herrick was born in London's Cheapside on August the 24th, 1591. He was educated at Westminster School, at least we believe so, and he left there at the age of 16 to go and work with his uncle, William, who was a very famous goldsmith. Herrick was apprenticed to him. Herrick left his uncle and he got himself a place at Cambridge University. In 1616, 1617, he obtained his BA, and then in 1620 he obtained an MA. And then for 8 years he disappears. We don't know what he did. He came here to Dean Prior. He was given the living by Charles I in 1629. And he stayed here for 16 years until, during the Cromwellian period, he was rejected as a royalist. But after the Restoration, he returned and remained here till the day he died in 1674. Herrick's life here was a love-hate relationship with Devonshire. He was acutely aware of his well-being here, of the rustic charm and simplicity of his life. He wrote about this parsonage where he lived. Lord, thou hast given me a cell wherein to dwell, a little house whose humble roof is waterproof, under the spars of which I lie, both soft and dry. And yet, in another poem, he wrote about Devon. More discontent I never had since I was born than here, where I have been and still am, sad in this dull Devonshire. Herrick never married, and this memorial stone inside the church is to the memory of Prudence Baldwin, who was Herrick's housekeeper and looked after him throughout his whole stay here at Dean Prior. Prudence is buried here in the churchyard, but we don't know where. Nobody knows where her burial ground is. And for many years, nobody knew where Herrick was buried either. They now believe that he lies here. He rests here, I would have said, in the quiet of the hamlet of Dean Prior. It was once described as a quiet hamlet approached by sleepy, winding country lanes. It's now approached by the new dual carriageway A38.
You see, traditionally, in this area, oak coppice was grown and cut every 10 years. Down it goes, and then he's going to bark it. to sell the bark for quality treatment of leather is by oak bark, used to be. And there was a market for bark in this area. We used to have a perennial quarrel with the Forestry Commission because they stripped bark, and we did also, but because they weren't figure-minded, they got all the money they wanted from His Majesty's Treasury, they used to undersell us in the bark market. And this we thought wasn't fair because we were on an economic basis and they were subsidized by the state. Now that'll be faggots being tied with a hazel wand and taken to the bakery in Buckfast Lee, which in those days still heated its oven with faggots, and then raked the ashes out and put the bread in. We didn't find much of a market for the oak stems. We used to sell them for pergolas in Paynton. We tried to work out slogans: paint, pretty, Paynton, pink with something, pergolas of oak. Then suddenly, in the war, the pits ran short of props and said, we will take oak pit props. And so we cleared it all most of it in a few years. And Tom Brown, whose father and grandfather had all been foresters in the Forest of Dean, and he said, if we can convert it, it's the perfect sort of valley for growing softwoods. There's Tom Brown, good. Tom Brown on the right. And the man on the left still alive, and this is young Douglas up in Kingswood. Kingswood was the first bit of coppice, 300 acres of coppice we bought and started to convert to softwood. This is regarded as one of the finest stands of Douglas in the country, P28. This will be 1928 planting. No opposition to conifers. And the planting of the conifers, you see quite a big staff, ultimately between 40 and 50 engaged in replanting. And in the war, of course, nobody was replanting. But we said to the government, we will provide as much oak props for coal mines as we can to you, with our staff working a full 8-hour day. Will you allow them to come back in the evenings and do 2 hours planting? So we not only got a lot of coppice cut, but we got a lot of wood replanted in the war and saved ourselves any amount. And here's the log book, and there's Tom Brown with his name, I think, was Hayman. He was in charge of Kingswood under Tom Brown. And we named a ford after him. We made a ford across a stream in Kingswood, and we called it Hayman's Ford. This looks like the old sawmill. In the early days, we took up industries only that had the raw material supply in the area. But we did know that there was a lot of hardwood in the southwest which could be turned into useful things. And so the sawmill was based entirely on local hardwoods. This is all in the sawmill. Brushback. You see, there it is, and he's going to make a brushback. There they are, he's been measured, and then the rounded ends, and then the 3 lines on, coloured, and then sawn down the middle, and out of it came 2 brushbacks. But I don't think a brushback today can afford that amount of skilled hand work on a brushback. Somebody may be doing it somewhere, but I don't think that. I think they may be starving on it. Then they were probably making a living. At least they weren't filling the queues of unemployed. After all, there were 4 million unemployed in Britain at this time. So that every job, even if it was only keeping the mouths fed and off the dole, was a contribution towards the national economy. And at one time, if you look at the figures of unemployment in Devon, you'll find nobody on the exchange in Totnes, except unemployables, a few, but all round the rest, queues of them. We really mopped it up during those critical years from 29 to 34.